welcome to Plow and Potato. We have a very special episode to bring you today. It's on hospitality. And joining us in the studio today is none other than Mar, aka Mara. Which one do you like better, Mar or Mara?
Mara.
You like Mara better?
Mara Esperanza.
Esperanza?
What a name.
What does that mean? What does your name mean, Mara?
Bitter hope.
Bitter hope.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why would that seems a little strange to me?
Well, actually, someone in the Bible was named Mara.
Oh.
He changed her name to Mara.
Interesting.
Mara Esperanza.
So bitter hope. Why not just like happy hope? Pops, Mr.
She's part of the history of the church. Our first daughter is named Reborn Church, Renata Ecclesia.
Okay.
And then Mara is Bitter Hope. She's this age of the church. And then if we had had a third daughter, she would have been something like Gloria or Victoria.
Oh.
Yes.
So that
Or
must
Glory.
mean, for all those not aware, you must be the father of this guest we have here.
I am. So we're having this episode on hospitality. How could we not have a guest?
Yeah. Oh, that's
Boom.
brilliant. I didn't even know why we had a guest. I was like, oh, sounds fun to me.
We're glad you're here, Mara.
We want to give a special shout out and thank you to our corporate sponsors, so corporate still, Kepler Education. Check out this quick commercial.
Kepler is not a traditional online school. It is a consortium of independent online educators unified by a common vision to bring a Christian and classical education to junior high and high school students.
Okay, so we are about to listen to some music.
Yeah, we are.
So what I have in front of me is just the title. Trump is your president.
Yes.
So our audience will, I think, begin to quickly learn that there won't always be a connection between our initial segments and our main topic.
That's right.
I'm curious to discover if there is one strangely hidden away in here. But yeah, so music is your thing, and you've brought us a thing. Let's hear it.
Yeah. Here it goes.
Hey, Maca gang, hey, so Maca down, Maca on my chain. Me and you, we ain't the same on the game. Hey, Donald Trump is your president, and if you like it or not, keep the energy you had with Barack. Cause you know this Trump train don't stop. Tell Beto to please come try to take my Glock. You wanna impeach him? I guess that's what you do when you can't beat him. I need to dead that. And I'm coming through your hood in my red hat. And they say they looking for me, I say where? Cause it seem like they all hiding like some scared cats. You can tell the deep state that I said that. Cannons always on my shirt. They gon' be triggered when I wear that. I exposed all the fakes, now who next? Bryson do not tolerate no disrespect. We went to the White House, they said we got to check. But this truth might make you upset. Donald Trump is your president, if you like it or not. Keep that energy you had with Barack. Cause you know this Trump train don't stop. Tell Beto to please come try to take my Glock. You wanna impeach him? I guess that's what you do when you can't beat him. That need to dead that. And I'm coming through your hood in my red hat.
So before I talk about this song and why I chose this song, I want your initial reactions. For all those listening, Joffrey's never heard that song
that's right.
before.
I mean, it was fun. I have to wonder how much of a novelty artist this artist is. Who is it, by the way?
His name is Bryson Gray.
Bryson Gray, okay.
He's pretty novel.
All right.
This kind of like was his break.
Because he didn't, but I mean by novelty, like an Al Yankovic sort of thing.
Yeah,
where
sure.
he's just like, so the song did not feel like a parody song or like a song that's meant to be ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's actually more mocking, right?
Uh-huh.
And mocking with a smile on his face.
Yeah.
I mean, it was saucy.
Very saucy.
Yeah, I absolutely love the attitude behind it. The timing of you playing this song strikes me as, I don't know if it's perfect or if it's odd.
It's both.
Yeah.
So the reason I chose this song is giving you guys an insight. We were going to do more of a political cultural episode for this one you're watching now, but we went a different direction. However, it was still in my mind to choose a song, a piece of music that is political in nature or protest in nature, because one quality of music is that it can be very functional, it can be very practical. You can have things like work songs meant to be sung while you're working to pass the time, to keep you busy. You can also have music to fuel protest, to bring people together, to unite people under one message. And so I was in this political protest genre-seeking mode, and I came across this. I've heard bits of it before, but I really dove into it this week, and so that's why I chose it. I also think it's a fun way to kick off maybe the part that I'm doing of our segment. So Joffre mentioned that our segment each week may not and often won't be connected to the big topic. And I think we've agreed on, I guess we'll talk about this now, that will kind of emphasize our strength as artists. So I'm a musician, music is my thing, so I'm going to bring you music and give you some vocabulary, an analytical mind, so that you can process and digest music. And Joffrey's going to do that.
This, Mara, is where you're going to get flashbacks of Mr. Bonet being your music teacher. This is the part where we get to feel that.
Are you feeling it? Do you see all the piano? Do you see the pitches flying through your heads?
Nope.
Do you remember the definition of notation?
No.
What a great teacher Mr.
I've done
Bonet
a really
is.
great job. And then Joffrey is going to do his poetry thing. So we're going to give you that art element as we build culture every week through our episodes. So what's fun about this, not only is it political and it's protesty, but it's a rap song. I'm kind of a classical music guy, and you're probably going to be receiving a lot more of classical music takes, or maybe pop songs that are more oldie. You know, the ones you go around town and say, oh, you're telling people's age by what songs they listen to. Oh, you must be really young, because back, in the 90s or in the 80s, everyone knew about this. But no one ever talks about that with classical music. Like, oh, you haven't heard Bach? You mean 200, 300 years ago? Like, oh, you haven't heard that song? Oh. Like, no one says like, oh, you're too young for that. So just a funny popular dynamic. So rap music, just kind of a funny start, unexpected start.
I like how you're telling them that it's unexpected. Like, boom, surprise, you're so shocked right now. And everyone is thinking, of course Sean opened with a rap song.
Did you know I was in a rap group in high school?
No, what? But you know what, I actually shouldn't act surprised.
Yeah.
Of course you were in a rap group in high school.
I was also in a rock band in high school.
You did everything.
Did you know?
Did you also play in the symphony orchestra of your town?
I did not.
Oh.
I know. I was not on my orchestral kick then.
That would have been the trifecta, though.
The trifecta, that would have been the truth, goodness, and beauty all in one.
Rap is the truth.
Yes, I was about to say, rap is the truth. Okay. Also, I'm really a high school hero. That's where my real glory lives. I have also crowd surfed. Do you know what crowd surfing is, Mar?
No.
Do you know what surfing is?
Yes.
Do you know what a crowd is?
Yes.
Now imagine the crowd is the water.
You jump out on it.
And they are the water, and you surf them like waves. They put their hands up, and so it's like moving water. And
sometimes they drop you.
That's right. But it depends on the water. Sometimes it's like low tide, and so it's calm and peaceful. And sometimes, like this, I didn't intend to jump in the water, take a little dip, but I was doing my electric guitar thing like a rock star, and they like pulled me into the.
Oh yeah, you've reached your audience.
That's right.
The audience has reached you.
Yeah, I didn't have to do that thing where I was like, "Hey guys, I'm gonna jump. You ready?" Like cannonball. Like they wanted me so.
So tell me this. Answer this technical question. How did I know? Because I knew. How did I know the beat was going to drop?
Ah, brilliant.
Like, what set me up
Okay,
for that?
yeah. So another reason why I chose this rap song is there's so many elements or parameters in it that are very characteristic of rap. And one of the reasons is a sense of form. Like, what's going to happen next in a rap song by the way they lay out the music. So when it opened up, you had a very reduced down musical soundscape.
Yep.
Like you had this piano and sort of string instrument doing their little lick, like their little dum bum bum bum, the repeating idea, and that was just going and going. It was very light. But then when the beat drops, you have this almost increase, this crescendo, and then all of a sudden the percussion enters in. And the reason you knew when the beat was going to drop is you could kind of hear this swelling occurring with these instruments. Also, another thing to expect in rap music is hype men or echo men, like in the recesses of the soundscape. So early on you hear them like, yeah, MAGA gang, etc. And after every phrase there was like something to say. It's very call and response oriented. You're going to get that all over rap. So in rap you can usually expect this hook kind of introduction with acoustic-like instruments. But then when the verse comes in, it's very percussion, electronic percussion heavy. So those are some main things to listen out for. Whenever you listen to rap, you can like, oh, there's probably going to be a hype man.
You too can enjoy rap. I know some of you guys are in Missouri and Wisconsin, surrounded by farmland. Ooh, let's listen to some hip hop. What I'd really like to see
You too.
is for a sequel segment to this at some point, let's teach our audience's kids to rap.
Yes! I love to freestyle.
Boom! Okay.
Always
Promise delivered.
Here you go.
All right, so we're going to listen to Sean freestyle at some point.
So with that, as we bring you this delivery, we bring you yet another delivery.
Ooh.
And that is a discussion on hospitality.
I accept. Thank you.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry.
I was dabbing
your
one.
cookie jar.
Oh. Yeah, so this wasn't like a, here, take my cookies. That was like me being hip with the kids.
Oh.
Because in rap music, they...
Sure.
Or
Do they still?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay, well, I accept your cookies.
No, you can't. It's not a going out, it's a coming in. It's an inward motion.
Uh-huh.
Whoa! No, you don't sound effect it. It's cool.
No, that sound effect came from the speed of my movement.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Have you ever dabbed before, Mar?
Pardon me?
Have you ever dabbed?
What'd you just ask?
Do you know what a dab is?
Can you mimic
Can
that?
you do this? Most people can too.
That's right. It's kind of like, what do I do with my elbow? It's all about a question of wrist and elbow. Can you say yeet? Yeah, that's it.
You get it, girl. You get it.
So, Joffre, we're jumping into a conversation on hospitality, and I love to begin a good, meaty conversation with defining terms. What does hospitality mean? What are like the main ideas and definitions connected to this hospitality thing?
Hospitality is being open. Your doors are open.
Okay.
You've got stuff, and you've got a house, and your doors are open. Hospitality is love. Ultimately, we're going to get to that eventually,
Okay.
but hospitality is being open. So like with hospitals, hospitals are supposed to be hospitable. The Knights Hospitaller were hospitable and started hospitals because they were receiving people and their doors were open. The hospitality is more than having people over for dinner. It's being available to help and to give.
Now that's really fascinating because going to the hospital bit, we think about hospitals for medical service, not receiving people. They help, like you think about hospitals help people, they help them medically, but I don't think people would necessarily praise hospitals for the hospitableness. Like, do you get that same sense?
No, but I mean, I think the idea that their doors are always open is there. But actually, the way the Knights Hospitaller got their name was not because they started hospitals. Hospitals are named after them. They called themselves Hospitaller because their mission was to protect pilgrims on the way to holy sites.
Okay.
Right, so they set up inns, they protected the roadways, and they made sure that you could actually get to the site of your pilgrimage. So they were an inn-keeping order.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I love that you also brought up hospitality, and being hospitable is to serve and open up to people. Now, you're kind of catching me for a loop because I'm thinking about a sort of momentary service when a guest comes over, you're trying to give them all of the food, you're trying to give them your attention, but you're talking about something more than that, possibly too?
Well, I don't know if it's more than that as it is just an extension of that into the great wide world and to all of time, right? It's an attitude, right? The hospitality, people often think, okay, I'm going to be more hospitable. And so they propose times and places to others and say, come at this time and place and I will be hospitable toward you.
Yes.
And that's good. That's hospitable. But true hospitality is when someone knocks on your door. Perhaps even when a stranger knocks on your door. Do you like strangers, Mara?
Stranger
No.
what? Stranger...
I don't know what he wants you to say either. Danger. Oh, stranger danger.
Your child doesn't know stranger danger.
You're
trying to avoid cliches?
School, dude.
Okay, yeah. Well, you want to avoid cliches. Mara is going to be walking down a street alone and be approached by a stranger.
Stranger danger, Mara.
Right. And she's not going to be ready to yell that in the face of the stranger.
So if Kimberly were here, she would tell you, and I mean, I guess I realize now this is tooting my own horn, but we had an adjustment with hospitality early on in our marriage. And part of that adjustment, part of the great stories Kimberly tells about this, is the few times I actually brought strangers over.
Straight up strangers.
Just straight up strangers. And now one of them kept hanging around, a homeless guy I brought by, and he knocked a couple of times on our house when I wasn't there. Mm-hmm. So then I had to reevaluate what hospitality ought to look like.
How far can you...
For me, the open door part was natural enough. For others, that may be a struggle. But then, there was some wisdom I was lacking as well.
Sure.
Anyway, all of that to get to, there's hospitality ought to mean that your doors are open all the time, that your house is an inn.
Yeah, and I would take that and add a few extra terms and ideas that hospitality is receiving and welcoming guests. And you said that, but I like to emphasize this word receiving, because you're bringing in, it's almost like you're making your own. If someone ever gives you a gift, or if you're given a meal, you sort of consume it. Now, we're not advising you to, eat your guests, but however you can take this idea of consuming and receiving your guests, I think will be a helpful image to encourage you to be hospitable in a strong manner. Even when we consider the Greek word for hospitable, philoxenia, which is philo, which is love, and even the second part of that word, xenia, which is like from xenophobia. Mm-hmm. So just the literal breakdown of it is loving outsiders, love for outsiders, which is a very definition that fits into your first concept of like homeless. I love you, outsider.
Right. And when you think about hospitality in the Old Testament, you see a lot of that in God's law, how we are to care for strangers. It actually can be sort of unnatural, but it's desired by God.
And the Christian foundation for being hospitable lies in one pillar, which is God welcomes strangers. God loves strangers. So all of us, pre-regeneration, without the gospel, we are alienated from God. Mm-hmm. We are strangers to Him. We're enemies to Him. And so, as you mentioned, hospitality is about love, and God has loved us first. And as He loves us, He welcomes us and receives us into His family. He makes us His sons and daughters. So we see in Ephesians 2:12, remember that you were at that time separated from Christ, alienated from the commonwealth of Israel, and strangers to the covenants of promise, having no hope and without God in the world. In Ephesians 2, we get this breakdown of strangers, remembering separation, not alienated, being far off, not brought in.
And we're blessed, we ourselves are blessed by being hospitable, which is a true thing and a thing we ought to embrace. This is what you're talking about, where you're eating your guests, right? You're breaking bread and wine, and you're feeding each other, even when they're not saints.
Yeah.
Right. But there's also kind of on the flip side of that. I think often people are motivated by practical aspects to be hospitality, right? Well, I want to be a better Christian, or even like I want to give a gospel presentation to my neighbor.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have them over for dinner. And so I think often if our motivation is one of love and of even just being honest and saying, I would be blessed by this person's presence, that I think can kind of purify our motives so that we are in fact able to share the gospel. Hospitality is the gospel, right? I mean, that's what you're saying with the Lord taking us into His house, God taking us into His house and making us the brothers of Jesus.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think it's often very tempting to think, well, okay, hospitality can be a weapon. Well, it is a weapon, but only if you don't use it as a weapon.
Only if you, yeah.
It's like, this guy just had me over to his house so he could give me a presentation. He wants to sell me Tupperware or tell me about Jesus.
Yeah. And I love Tupperware and Jesus, but...
Me too.
Mara, I kind of can't get off my consuming people thing. Have you ever seen your father consume his guests?
I have no idea what that means.
Have you ever seen me eat a guest?
Has your father ever eaten a person before?
No.
All right. Not stranger danger. Just want to check off. Now that that's cleared up,
Yeah.
what you were describing is in contrast to John Piper's take on hospitality. Maybe not his full orb view,
Okay.
but he describes hospitality in terms of being strategic hospitality. I have a kind of a quote where he's wrapping this idea. He says, ask, how can I draw the most people into a deep experience of God's hospitality by the use of my home? Who are the people who could be brought together in my home most strategically for the sake of the kingdom? Now, that is not full, maybe to the right, where it's, I'm bringing them so I can bang them with the gospel. Because you have language in here. I'm trying to draw them into a deep experience of God's hospitality. So that's going to mean genuine conversation,
Yes.
caring for immediate needs.
And Piper is famously a loving, caring person.
He is. He's very Uncle Pipe. Uncle John. I don't know if anyone calls him Uncle Pipe.
Yo, Uncle Pipe.
Can we cue that? So, mad love. Now, but that's a little bit different. Sort of. Like, it's kind of subtle, the difference from what you're describing for hospitality for the sake of enjoying someone's presence.
Right. Well,
Then this idea of strategic initiative and
Right.
how can I the most out of this one moment.
Yeah, and I think it's that is more of a directional thing than anything else, right? Because he does want people to have a deep experience of God's own hospitality, and our homes should be like that, right? Our homes should show the goodness of God, right? And show that God blesses the nations,
God
and
bless
I
the
bless you,
nations.
stranger, right?
We need a hymn like that. God bless you nations and, how'd you say it? God bless the nations and you stranger.
Ooh, okay.
Ooh.
That's a project for you.
Oh, my chair's falling. Hold on. This is my first project. Trying to get back in my seat.
So let's talk about this with hospitality. What about hospitality as self-sacrifice, as losing your life?
Okay. Yeah, so my wife and I, as a fairly newlywed couple, are trying to be hospitable. Because not only do we love it because we love the people, but we also approach it in some ways like a spiritual discipline.
Yes. And the discipline thing, kind of brings up the learning how. Like Kimberly and I had to learn how to be hospitable and learn how to be hospitable together.
And note, star, asterisk. That's such a beautiful insight into the Christian life because we think that we know how to pray and are good at it. We think we know how to read the word and are good at it. We think we know how to love people and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But these are all things we need to grow up into. Mm-hmm. They're things we need to mature into, not things that we just have in the moment, which is an encouragement because that means it's normal for you to fail. It's not okay, but it's normal. It's part of the process of becoming a follower of Christ, becoming to the next glory, the image of glory. So the reason I think it is a discipline and the reason it involves losing your life is because often you're going to have to put down bad busyness. You're going to have to put down tiredness and division. So what I mean by bad busyness is it's good to be busy and productive and hard at work with things, but there comes a time where busyness becomes toxic because it's not letting you take care of your priorities.
Yes.
It's keeping you from caring from your family and your church and your community, the strangers among you. So when busyness is like that, it's bad.
Yes.
Hospitality says, put it down.
Let's
Be
reorder
hospitable.
things. That's right.
That's right.
Let's reprioritize, reorder. But there's also beyond just the fact that hospitality can be such a blessing to you and help you shape your life in a more saintly way. There's also the fact that there's real sacrifice often called upon when we're being hospitable. When you get a call from your husband saying so and so from work is coming over and you were just going to make hot dogs for the kids, right? I mean, that's and then maybe that even affects your grocery budget, right?
Right.
It could affect maybe you're just too involved in plans, and it's like, I have my meals planned for this week and I can't disrupt it. That's bad. But it's a real sacrifice to be, I have the meals planned this week because we're out of money.
Yeah.
Right, and that happens. In fact, so we had a wonderful, at our home in South Carolina, we had this wonderful summer party called the Swate Summer Soiree. There was this huge event, several years in a row we had it. And, friends of ours would drive from all over the East Coast, and, we would have 150, 200 people at these things, and huge,
This is in your house?
In our yard, but that's right, yes.
You had 200 people in your yard, Mar? Do you remember that?
Well, was it the thing? I remember one time when I was sitting on your lap and we saw a bunch of fireworks.
Oh, that was just another party. But yes.
You guys sound like party animals.
We do.
Do you have
parties.
scales because you're a party animal? Or fur? Because you're get it?
Because you're a party animal.
Because animals have fur or scales?
Mr. Bonet comes out with some pretty wacky stuff.
Sometimes, here's the thing. Sometimes I'm great with the kids. Sometimes they just need time. I'm like an onion.
Okay, yeah. Let's unpeel you. Well, this party actually started from a bad situation we were in. So we ran this party for 4 or 5 years. The first year we had no money left.
No moolah.
We were out of money.
Out of moolah.
So we had $200 or $300 to our name, and that was it, and not enough to pay the bills next month. Mm-hmm. And so we decided to, since we weren't going to be able to pay our bills anyway, spend all that money on a party. And we bought a keg, and we bought meat, and we did this big bean stew, and we invited everyone we knew. And then that was how the party started. That ended up being a huge blessing to us. Okay. And I don't remember how the financial situation got resolved. Kimberly probably remembers in excruciating detail. But we're still here. We're still standing. But that ended up making this thing that ended up being a huge blessing to us. A highlight for our family every year. 3 or 4 months of lead up to it and getting excited and preparing. And and it really built it became part of our yearly liturgy, like Christmas and Easter and the Swate Summer Soiree.
Yeah.
And it all came from a place where we are out of money and have no idea what to do. Let's buy some beer.
Yeah, and you've told me about this story a bit, so much so that the money you had would really be of no service if you tried to throw it at a bill.
Right.
And so it's like, okay, we literally can do anything with this money almost now because we're stuck like Chuck.
Yeah.
So let's do it. Let's throw a party.
But that was such a blessing.
Yeah. Well, and that blessing you received, it started because you guys walked by faith, took a discipline, and sort of followed in some sort of path of obedience of being hospitable. And that's part of the challenge that comes when you're dying to self as being hospitable. You have to fight against busyness. You have to fight against the way that your schedule or your budget might say, maybe not, And there's wisdom to not go over the top, like 7 days a week, we're going to host 300 families. I don't know. Yeah. That's a little out of tap.
Now I can't buy breakfast for my kids.
Yeah.
Right? We're not saying that.
That's right.
Don't find yourself in that position we found ourselves in, if you can help it.
I was listening to Plow and Potato Honey, and Mr. Swade said, if we have, but there's also some of the big things that I think are challenges when being hospitable is fighting tiredness and temptations towards division. And I couldn't think of a better way to say this idea than division, but this is like when you're really not interested in the people who are over, or maybe you're sort of over them.
Yes.
You don't really want to engage with them. Maybe it's time for them to go home.
That is much more likely to happen, by the way, when you've invited them for some ulterior motive. Like, I need to practice more hospitality. Who can we get along well enough to pull this off?
Okay.
Right. And if you're thinking that way, you're much more likely to run into that situation. They've been here for 2 hours now. That's kind of what I wanted.
All right. Yeah. All right. Time. I'm done here.
Right. Yes. And actually, I've been kind of guilty of that a few times. Yes, I do get grumpy.
No, Joffre, you've been a bad host. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I love how you find that totally believable. I have been a bad host often.
You are a quite nice host, but I also believe you've been a bad host.
Yeah.
It's and part of the, I guess, to go along with your point, you need to fill yourself up with the right kind of fuel and enough of that fuel in order to be a good host.
Yes.
You need this fuel in order to fuel into others, because that's kind of like what's happening in a hospitable moment, in a hospitable environment. Ready? Here's this crazy analogy I'm thinking of.
Hit me.
You're like a space station.
Ooh, okay.
Your family, your home is like a space station. And all these little UFOs are coming in from the galaxy, landing, and they are finding fuel, and maybe they're getting some engine repairs at your house, because hospitality greatly blesses people, especially people who are in a really hard place in life.
Yeah.
And then you send them out of the space station back into the wide expanse of the galaxy to go do their, alien things.
Yeah. So, Mara, when you have people over, what do you like about having people over?
Do you ever think about it as a space station fuel up? Were you tracking with that, or is that just weird? Do you need more onion? Okay. It's all about, first you put the onions like you buried in the burger, and then all of a sudden you can put it on your, okay.
So when you have a friend over, what do you like about it?
I don't know.
So this is a podcast. We're on camera right now, but actually this is mostly audio. So most people would just be listening to it. So you'll have to use your words. Words are hard. So I like having people over because I get to show them the things I love.
Like your baseball card collection?
Well, like the food I cook. Usually, but my books.
Your wife.
My wife. Yes, I do. I like showing
Check out
off
my wife.
Yeah, I do. I like showing off my wife.
You're like that youth pastor.
I admit it. Yeah.
All right, guys. Before I tell you about the gospel, my wife is so hot. She is so hot. You young guys, I bet you're just dying to get a smoking hot babe like this. Do you know we have?
Yeah.
Anyways,
yeah.
So you like to show them the things that you love.
Yeah, absolutely, and so they can get to know me. I like that.
When you have friends over, Mar, do you ever play with them?
Only if they're kids.
That's probably good to not play with adults. And do you like to show them your toys?
Sometimes.
Do you like to show them the games you like to play, like hopscotch? Do you play hopscotch? What do the kids play these days?
Well, I play Hungry Hungry Hippo. That's a fish.
That's the like the loud one where you're like.
Yeah, like that's more like what mine sounds like.
Yeah.
I've sort of been afraid of that game. It's just a little too aggressive for me.
We'll have to have Mr. Bonet over so you two can play.
Do you play aggressively in that game? Do you play to win?
Yeah, just like.
Just no mercy. Yeah. As a kid, when I was playing, I was just thinking, people getting too intense. Like the hippo head is like flying off, and the white balls are like, and they're just like still. I'm gonna get like guys. They're like not even on the board anymore.
Yeah. One time I even had to give one surgery.
You had to give a hippo surgery?
Yes, because he got like a little ball just got like stuck in there. We couldn't get it out.
It's like choking.
Poor hippo.
So do you call 911 in that moment, or you just take action?
We were like getting like a fork or a knife or something like that. And like,
get out of there!
Down the hippo's throat.
No, it appears that you need some surgery, sir. That's great.
Yeah, we use the phrase entertaining people.
Yeah.
And entertaining people makes us think of crystal goblets, but it could make us think of hungry hippos.
Wow.
Because that's one thing about hospitality we could actually sit on for a little bit in this show, is we set these standards for ourselves, which can actually be barriers and add to the stress, when in fact, a saying I like about hospitality is this: add more water to the beans. It's a Brazilian saying. And it basically means, 5 more people are coming? No problem.
Add more water to the beans.
Add more water to the beans, that's right. So, that no problem sort of attitude is one to cultivate, to change your standards when you think about how you're having people over.
In the Dominican Republic, they have a similar expression with a bit of a different tinge to it. It's down to the last grain of rice, almost. So they're big on eating rice, beans, and chicken. And down to the last grain of rice is like everything I have. It's like, more people are coming? Well, we've got food, so we can feed them. We can't feed them once we're completely out of food, right? It's like, the main dish was chicken, and we had a side of potatoes, plum potato, you know what I mean? But then now we're all out of that. But like, we've got some ramen.
Yeah.
Here's some Captain Crunch, sure.
And
Why
you
don't you
can
take
make
it?
that a really happy experience. People can love that.
They'll be like, oh, this
if
is
you don't
so...
seem burdened by it. You're like, yay, I greet you with a smile, and I present you with some ramen and some coffee. That's what we got left, and good times ensue.
Yeah. That's such a brilliant encouragement and exhortation, is the more you love hospitality for what it truly is, the way it's an image of the gospel and the way that it shapes us, just the more fun and memorable it's going to be. Like, remember when I went over to your house and like you didn't have anything left, and so we had ramen, and you didn't even, like, you put coffee for the base.
That's not what I meant, but I love that image.
And then your son was like, throw some peanut butter in there. I was like, that sounds great. Coffee, peanut butter, ramen. And I threw up.
Scallions on top, it's fine.
Yeah. You didn't even mind.
Well, yeah, I'd love to talk about some of the things that we do in our own home. So there you guys are, a younger couple, and we're more established as a family. We find ourselves in an apartment now because we moved recently, and that's cramping our style.
Ooh.
But we're not going to let it. Right, so I mean, we're going to keep on trucking.
Still going to be
people into
hospitable.
it. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because it should be a part of the liturgy of our family.
Yeah.
And actually, maybe liturgy is a good word to think about, because what are things we do with our guests that include them in our own family liturgies?
Yeah, and I think the proper way to include guests is to make sure you have a stable home and family to invite them into. So advice that I try to give to myself, my family, and to others as we're learning about this is, you guys have to be well first. You know, back to the space station analogy, you have to have fuel and you have to have parts.
I agree with that, as long as no one uses it to present that barrier, right? Oh, because there are some people who will think, I'm never well enough to have someone over.
Oh yeah, then you just don't really get the gospel.
Right.
Because the gospel says...
Boom, did you guys hear that? Sean just said, you don't really get the gospel.
That means you're not a Christian. Get out of the kingdom. I'm just kidding. Whoa, easy, Mar.
I felt like I was scary enough. And then you went,
I don't know. I was feeling, I never, it's kind of...
I never got to fire and brimstone it.
I just was ready. I didn't have a tie on.
Well, what's something we do before we eat every meal, Mara?
Pray.
We pray. What else?
We sing.
Yep. Boom. That's a good thing to do with guests.
Wait. I didn't. You took me off on the fire and brimstone preacher. So important things to do to prep yourself is to pray. To pray for the time. Okay. and to pray that God would bless everything that's going on in this moment. The food, the cleaning, the presentation of you, of the gospel, of your house, of your guests, of the interaction, the fellowship, and to make sure that there is peace between you and God and you and your family. I think Pastor Toby has mentioned before, if you're about to have people over and you guys are sort of in the middle of a quarrel and they knock on the door, it's like, well, you should probably go let them in and be like, just 1 minute, we'll be right with you, and kind of go and resolve that, so you're not bringing in a bickering dynamic to this moment. So that's a foundation. Okay, yes. Pray and sing. Tell me more, Joffre.
Well, I mean, it's, when you have anyone over, maybe not Christians or Christians who don't know the same songs, you can still sing and include them in the atmosphere of it, right? Just be at ease. Being at ease is so important. Hey, we're going to sing this now, right? But you could have sheets. You could have all sorts of ways of participating. The song we always sing before meals with Christians that we don't know what their background is the doxology. Almost everybody knows the doxology. Yeah. Right? And somewhere in the recesses of their mind. Yeah. Right? But whatever it is that we think will set them at ease, but allow them to participate with us, and then just having a good time together. Songs are so unifying and so hospitable that the doxology is for meals, but you can have events where you host people to sing. Yeah. Like, let's get together and let's sing and drink beer.
I'm all about it. Like beer and psalms. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And this is a great time for me to plug music. Both cameras, looking at both cameras. See. That you said it's a unifying thing to sing. The more musically literate you are, the more you really get to enjoy the unification that comes from song and music, because you're preparing yourself to enter a variety of situations and be more ready to engage and understand what's going on musically. And the more you can be on the same page with your guests musically, just the kind of like, whoa, that was cool.
Yes.
Or like here's a really great story where a friend of mine from Florida came into town, and he became my friend. I picked him up for the airport. I just met him, and he came over for lunch. And Rachel and I always sing something before our meals. And so we went to doxology, like, hey, do you know the doxology? Sometimes it's almost like an offense, because I usually ask people, like, hey, do you know the doxology? Like,
yeah. Yeah. But you got to ask.
Yeah, sure. It's like, well, if you don't, maybe we'll sing, I don't know, what's a more popular, Amazing Grace? Maybe, who knows? But who knows all the words to that? I don't. And anyways, so he's a music guy, so this is really a perfect example. And I said, okay, well, we usually sing parts, we sing the melody. Yeah, so it's just me, Rachel, and Ed in my living room singing the doxology a cappella in 3-part harmony. And at the end, he was like, whoa, that was so cool. Like,
because as soon as you did that, you were a part of his home.
Right.
He was a part of your home.
That's right.
I mean, just boom. It's magic.
You're just like, all of a sudden, you have everything in common.
Yep.
The power of music. The power within.
The power of hospitality.
The power of hospitality.
And music.
The power of music in hospitality.
You have several things here. Yes, we have several things here that I think are practical little tips. I'd love to just tackle them one by one.
Boom, let's do it.
And yeah, all right. So the first one is be on time, which you put there.
Yep.
Be on time. Why'd you put, so if I'm practicing hospitality and I'm the host, is that for me, or are we thinking about being a guest? Which
Both.
is part of, okay.
Yeah. So as a host, you want to be on time for everything, partly because it's likely not just you putting this thing together. It's probably you and your family contributing to this event. And so the more you can be punctual and organized, there'll be less burden on whoever you're working with. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of the idea of being on time, and so that you're ready to engage with your guests. Now,
and being on time here doesn't mean starting, like serving the meal at 6 o'clock because you invited them at 6. Mm-hmm. What it means is understanding the arc of whatever you have planned, the arc of what your family is doing, the arc of what your guests are going to be, right? So you understand all of that, and so you understand there's time to move from this stage to that stage, and you're adapting as you go. They showed up late for whatever reason. Yep. Right? That being on time is not like, oh, the clock is ticking and we missed the deadline.
Sure, right.
But it's hitting things, hitting the right rhythm, hitting the right notes.
Yeah, and bringing it down, it's being, maybe even if you said this is going to happen at this time, like, show up and we're just going to eat right away. We'll be ready for your guests to enter at that time, for them to, and
which,
for you to integrate them into your home.
Yes, exactly. And I would actually recommend never saying we're going to eat at this time,
because it never happens.
Well, So what I was going, before you said that, I was going to mention this, and it's an obvious connection, which is that when you plan your events, mm-hmm. that you should be thinking of, well, how am I going to set people at ease with the schedule, mm-hmm. right? And so, you want to build in cushions and let people, we're arriving, but we're not in a hurry, clearly.
Yeah.
Because the table's set, but the food's still on the stove. Mm-hmm. Like, you see as a guest that the food's on the stove, and you know, we're about to relax. Oh, here comes a cocktail.
Oh, ooh, look what is floating down from heaven, a cocktail I spy. And so it's just, I like your take on the time, how you sort of fashion it more kind of topically and generally by chapter of the evening, because that gets at the heart of it. And the more you can lean into being ready, expecting your guests, expecting the next moment, that will contribute to the ease in the more hospitable environment. So the next thing we have is tell them of any rules that you really want them to follow,
which should be few,
but
few. they're around.
Right? Yeah, and by these rules, these are like that you really want them to follow. So you maybe have a lot of rules in your home for whatever reason, but these are the ones like they should do, because if not, then they could be blindsided or hit like awkwardly, like, right. Oh wait, don't, and then all of a sudden you're like correcting someone, maybe in front of...
You never want to find yourself in that position.
So it's better to say, Rachel and I don't have a whole lot of rules at our house. We usually hit people with like, hey, will you take your shoes off? Mm-hmm. That's like our rule. Do you have any rules that you set out for your guests?
Well, we've moved a lot, so that often just depends on the home.
Okay.
Right? So we might say, hey, kids, don't go out the back door. There's a hole in the deck or something. Then we know that.
There's
right?
a hole. There's a hole in the bottom.
Okay, so you guys shouldn't do these things, and you should know right away so that we're not finding ourselves in an awkward spot of, I don't want anyone going out the back, right? Or don't pet the dog until he comes up to you.
Yeah.
Little things like that should be mentioned and are part of helping the guests navigate it.
Yeah, like kids, don't pick up the dog poop.
Are you going to mention that one specifically?
There's a great story behind that. We'll save it.
Well, have everything ready for your guests beforehand. Room, spot at the table, mug and creamer, etc.
This is a wonderful, maybe one of the, I think, important pro tips, because it's one of the ways that I've been most blessed. When you kind of walk into a home, and it's not the sense that everything is ready and perfect, but that we're expecting you. Like,
yes.
Here's your spot. Look, here's your mug for coffee. Not like, you're here. Okay, here's a mug. There's something beautiful that can happen in a moment like that. But like, here's your room. The bed's made, all the sheets are cleaned, and here are like 3 towels.
And that does so much to communicate the gladness that you have in receiving them. And we're not communicating here a formality. Like, look, this is your seat, and even though this is just a dinner between the two families, we've put a name card on there, right? It's not that.
Yeah.
It's just that they see, we were ready for you. We were eager.
Yes.
And everything is here.
Talk about things they care about.
That sounds like good dating advice from your mom. It's like, don't just talk about yourself. Make sure you ask her.
Make eye contact. Ask her what she likes to do with her friends.
So that's just basic good conversational art.
Yeah, you don't want your guests coming over to your home to be a show about you, right? If anything, it's better for it to be the reverse, where it's like a show about them, where they're just going on about them and what they love.
Which, kind of looping back to something at the beginning of the show, that actually connects why it's healthy for you to think about, what do I get? Like, how am I being blessed? Because if they see that you believe you're being blessed,
by having them over.
Solely. Yes, then they will be glad. They will be blessed because they see that in fact, like, that you wanted them there.
That is so huge. I don't think we can overstress, like, genuinely enjoying and being interested in that person and having that be communicated to them. It just does wonders, because you feel like you're actually in an intimate relationship where there's true love, and you're like, I like this. This is fun.
I actually think the next one builds up intimacy as well. Encourage and rebuke.
Rebuke.
Your guests. You put rebuke in there.
I put rebuke in there.
Yeah. So tell me about that.
So the encouragement will go first, and I'll talk about that first. You want to, as you're getting to know them, build them up as much as you can. Like, amen them, yes them, as much as possible, so that you can give them that affirmation, like, what you're doing in this life, the choices that you're making, they're good and they're godly, and I want to see more of that. Keep going in that direction. You're on the right track. You're on the right path, and you've hit a lot of great markers along the way. Now, the rebuke is an important thing too, because that is one of the strongest and most important doors to go through in a relationship, to be able to say, hey, actually, that doesn't check out too well, or I don't know.
And
you
that builds
should
intimacy.
think.
You call it a mark in a relationship. You don't invite someone over in order to rebuke them, but calling someone out on their foolishness actually establishes intimacy.
Yeah.
We're close enough that I believe I can say this, and you'll stay for the nightcap.
Yeah, and that, if the guest is awake and paying attention, they'll have some sense of like, wait, did he just rebuke me?
Right.
It's only 6:30.
Yep.
We still have another hour. We still have a few more cocktails.
So here's one I believe very strongly in. Prepare way too much food and drink.
High five. Amen. Can I get an amen, Mara? Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Dab? Yeet? Can I get a yeet? Oh, that's Yeezy. Okay.
But never running out
2024
is key. And it's not just about communicating bounty or communicating wealth. It's not about that. It's that you don't want to put your guests in a situation where they feel they were a burden. They should not know that you spent everything on their meat and rice.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. They should just know that there's plenty.
Right.
And that's it.
Yeah, they should be like, oh, fourth? Sure.
Yeah. They should never be in the quandary of, do I take the last piece?
Yes. I love to hit people with the like, just like being, everyone is so full and you're like, there's so much food left.
Yes.
Like,
oh, yeah.
Cha-ching!
Victory! Yeah. So, Mara, you've had tea parties at your house. You've received people for tea parties. What are some things you like to do for your tea parties?
Well, at my friend Clovia's tea party, when I went to hers, one of the things I really liked about it were the little snacks she made. She made chocolate dipped strawberries.
Wow.
She made little circle. Her mom made like all of this. Her mom made little cucumber and cream cheese circle sandwiches.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, like really tiny little circle
They were a
sandwiches.
lot of work, huh?
I know, and it was really good, and the tea was so good too. And
what about at your tea parties?
well, one thing I like about them is I remember one, and in South Carolina, I invited all my neighbors and Sasha, my best friend, and then we had a tea and with my tiny little mugs, and one of my favorite things were those tiny little mugs. I thought that they were really fun and cute.
Yeah. So you presented all these best mugs for them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And they were fun and cute.
They were fun and cute.
Yep. I even have a ladybug set. A ladybug tea set.
A ladybug? Ladybug tea.
Mm-hmm. And the teapot has a little song.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Fun times.
Mm-hmm.
Does it have a dance to it too?
No, it's just a tiny one. Like, it's a really tiny mug. It's just like, ladybug, ladybug, fly away home.
It's not I'm a little teapot. And that's what Mr. Bonet was trying to get at.
I've got a teapot dance I can show you sometime. Just remind me.
So my show notes totally just crashed.
Well, and here's the last bit of practical advice that I like to consider is, if either of you say, let's do this again sometime, make a plan then, or make a plan to make a plan.
Yes.
We're so in a whirlwind of a culture where we say like, oh, we should hang out sometime, or oh, let's get together for dinner, and then it never happens.
I actually find it a little insulting when people say that to me, and there's not like an immediate plan. It's like when people say, "I'll pray for you."
Okay. You want them to put hands on you?
I've been well, yes, yeah, I kind of do.
Okay, good.
Or like, I'll pray for you one time. It's like, okay, great, I believe you, right? But it's just one becomes so acculturated, you just hear these things, and so you don't take them seriously, and so that trains all of us to take hospitality less seriously.
Yes.
Don't say it unless you really want this, and you're gonna make it happen.
That's right, and that will up the hospitality game, because you won't treat it as some sort of cliche saying, or as like just a nice thing to say. One great example transfer is, hey, how are you? What's going on? It's not really a moment to talk about how you're doing and to justify why you're in the state of being you are in. You just say, oh, good.
Yeah.
Often for a while I would respond to people who ask me how you doing, say, hey, how are you? I would just say, hi. Because I would just treat it as just this one long greeting that essentially says,
it often is.
Hello.
It often is. Like, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
But you want to be a little more conscious.
Yeah. And so as much as you can, just lean into being thoughtful. Like, well, do you really want to do, like, what are the costs? When are you going to do it? What's your schedule like? And even it's like, make a plan right there. Like, well, let me text you in like a week, or maybe I'll text you next month and see, it can be long. It's like, okay, but next week at the same time, right? And then all of a sudden you're like in the train, well, I really like you, but...
So I have a very busy friend in town, and so 2 Sundays ago we said, okay, we'll talk this week sometime, and we'll make a plan to get together for a beer. Didn't happen.
Okay.
So the next Sunday we got together and we said, okay, you're going to, one of us will text the other tomorrow, very specifically, and say when and where we're meeting for beer.
Yes.
And then it happened, and I had a beer with his friend this week. It was great.
Just like that.
Just like that. So, Mara, I think we could approach the end of the show by planning our evening for the play that we are going to present for Mr. Sean and Miss Rachel. So the audience can know that Mara wrote a story, and then Dad turned it into a script, and we're going to make it a play. And I have my tiger costume. She has her princess costume.
And I made the mask.
And you made my tiger mask, yes.
What kind of mask?
A tiger mask.
Tiger mask? Oh, good.
So we're going to have the Sean and Rachel family over. What should we serve them?
Yes.
Oh, hot chocolate.
Hot chocolate.
And cookies. Hot chocolate and cookies.
What kind of cookies?
Well, I don't know. Probably ginger snaps.
Or should you serve us tiger or something? Because is it a medieval? Is it about knights and dragons?
Nope. Just princess and tiger.
Oh, I feel like
there's no eating the tiger.
What would a princess eat? Like mutton joints, like meat.
You know what we could do?
You'll find out.
I'm just trying to get some meat here.
So we're finding something out about Mr. Sean. He likes meat. So let's find a way to give him some meat on that night. Bacon.
Bacon. I love bacon. Medieval bacon.
All right, so we're gonna have them over for this play, and we'll serve them bacon because we love them.
Mm-hmm.
Boom.
Bacon and hot chocolate.
Ooh, delightful.
With ginger snap cookies. Don't forget the cookies.
And cookies.
Good stuff.
Thank you guys for joining us in the episode. We love each other. We love doing this for you guys. It's a huge blessing. And we have a sign-off line. Now, you may remember how sweet last week's sign-off line was. Pretty epic, stopping the cosmos. Everyone was like, whoa!
What?
But, you know, we're open-minded here. We like to try on different things.
Be real. Some people in the Discord were like, that was a little lame, guys.
No one said that in the Discord. And if you don't believe me, you'd have to go join the Discord to find out if you're not in there.
Link below.
Link below. Above and below. So we're going to try on another line.
From our viewers.
Our Discord. You have the power to have your words be presented as a sign-off line.
So we're not always going to do this, but we're looking for that sign-off line, and you guys are helping us find it. So what's this week's?
I don't know.
How about, I think this was from Cookie Mama. It was, see, my computer's down now. It was, oh shoot.
Is this the one about the plow
plowing
and go?
and yeah. Oh shoot. It's not plow hard and grow. Dang it, I blew it.
Keep talking and thinking.
That's
I'm going to find it.
line. Dang it, I blew it is a good closing
What have I
line.
done? Okay. Cookie Mama's sign off was keep your hand on the plow and grow.
Boom.
And then maybe some potato might be implied. Keep your hand on the plow and grow. Look for the potato.
Bye, everybody.